Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's 5:30, so it's time for our business meeting for December 9th for the Douglas County Board of County Commissioners. We want to welcome any of you who are there at the courthouse or any of you joining us online. Just a bit of information regarding how we run our meetings on Zoom during this time of social distancing. If visual aids are used during the meeting, the presenter will share the screen with the call. Participants will not be able to view them without a computer, smartphone, or tablet. All participants will be entered into the meeting with their audio muted, meaning the commission and the public will not be able to hear you. Presenters will be unmuted when their agenda item comes up. We ask that all online presenters use good conference call etiquette and mute their line when not speaking and introduce themselves each time they speak. If you have a public comment on an agenda item or under regular public comment, please use the raise your hand function on Zoom. Staff will call you and unmute you. We ask that, well, they'll call on you. They won't call you personally. We will ask speakers to give their name and address for the minutes. The county reserves the right to shut off the microphone and remove any speaker from the meeting if they are vulgar, rude, or inappropriate. The chat function has been disabled and a recording of this meeting will be available on our website after the meeting. With that, our agenda tonight has 3 items on the consent agenda, 5 items on our regular agenda. We have some specific appointments that are on our agenda. Then we'll do general public comment, commissioner and administrator miscellaneous before we adjourn. Commissioners, is there any item on the consent agenda that you would like to poll for further discussion or questions?
I don't have anything.
None for me.
I'm going to ask to pull the minutes from October 21st. We got an update on them this afternoon, and I haven't had a chance to review them. If we could do that at the next meeting, I'd appreciate that. Is there anyone in the public who has an item, anyone there at the courthouse or online who would like to pull an item from our consent agenda?
We don't have any.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. It doesn't look like anybody online, Jill. Okay. So with that, I'd take a motion for items 1, excluding the 10/21/20 minutes, 2 and 3 on the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Passes 3-0. We will move on to our regular agenda, and the first one is Artists Helping the Homeless. And I'm sorry, I don't want to say this wrong. Kairos House annual update.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jill. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Good evening, Commissioners. Jill Jolliker, Assistant County Administrator, and I've been kind of a project leader for our initial partnership with Artists Helping the Homeless, which you wrote, just to kind of hit the highlights of what was in my cover memo for the annual update for the year. We came to the commission in June of 2019 after a work group of folks of supportive housing minded folks went on a field trip in 2018 to go look at a variety of projects that were in the Kansas City metro area, serving some diverse constituencies in creative ways. And on that first field trip was Sarah, folks from Burton Ash, folks from the Housing Authority, Trainer Architects. And one of the projects that we saw at the suggestion of our friends at Heartland Radac was Bodie House, which is run by Artists Helping the Homeless and their executive director, Car Wu, who you're going to hear from here in just a little bit. And then shortly after that, we connected with Car Wu, and we came up with an idea for a project engagement in Douglas County to help us with some of the one of the most challenging groups of folks that we've been trying to problem solve and serving in partnership with our sheriff's office for a long time, and kind of an interest that coalesced also around the years of work that Mike Brower had led at the sheriff's office around the National Stepping Up initiative that many folks in the Behavioral Health Leadership Council had also been engaged in, and trying to divert as many folks as possible with a mental illness and or substance use disorder out of our jail, and preventing their visits to the Douglas County Correctional Facility, and also utilizing other services. One of the common factors that we found within a lot of those folks was that housing was a common issue, and the lack of safe and stable housing to continue their recovery was a common factor. And our partners at the Sheriff's Reentry Office, we're looking for solutions and partnerships, particularly in a challenging community environment where there aren't enough Oxford houses, which are sober living environments and sober living communities for folks that are recovering from a substance use disorder to live their lives in a supportive and stable way. So we began the partnership with Artists Helping the Homeless with the formal agreement that the County Commission signed in June of last year. And then the Artists Helping the Homeless project team got together and started putting together the pieces of the program, including the work of Artists Helping the Homeless actually securing the house that is 1211 Randall Road in West Lawrence, and all of the planning and zoning efforts that went into that. And then we were Artists Helping the Homeless was able to open in September. And over the course of the first year, the first few months were just kind of getting started, getting up and going, and figuring out who was and who wasn't a good fit for the project. And then, of course, what happens next? COVID happens. So it's been a really interesting first year of the project. But all things considered, I think what you're going to hear from Carwoo and from our reentry director, Carrie Nice, is that we are seeing some successes with this project. And we have been, I included some indicators in my cover memo regarding when I did a review of the folks that had been served by Kairos House in the first full year. I gave you some statistics about their prior interactions with the system, with our systems, that I was able to access via my resource connection as a super user of that program. So I gave you some statistics, including there were 50 emergency room visits to LMH, more than 67 jail bookings. I don't know how many jail day stays that includes, but so that was 59 bookings into the Douglas County Jail and 8 in the Johnson County Jail, because we do track that as well in my resource connection. And then more than 26 Lawrence Douglas County Fire and Medical paramedic responses. So I don't know what that says or means, but those are some of the indicators that we are trying to track right now in terms of how are these folks interacting with our system before they came to Kairos House. And obviously after this first full year of service of the program being up and running, we're going to have more information moving forward after this first full year. And we're going to be looking at, recidivism rates, future visits, things like that. But at this point, I want to hand it off to Carrie Nice with the Sheriff's Office to give you a sense of how she and her team are using this project and some of the successes that they're seeing, and how they work with Carwoo.
Yes, good evening. I'm Carrie Nice. I am the Reentry Director here at the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. I first want to thank the commissioners for the opportunity for us to partner with Carwoo and Artists Helping the Homeless and bring this resource to our community. Reentry has utilized AHH as our primary referral source for males that are incarcerated facing homelessness upon release. During the timeframe of October 2019 to September of 2020, Reentry provided 24 referrals to AHH, in which we were able to place 17 of those individuals. Some of those numbers may seem kind of low. As Jill explained, COVID had a huge impact on our ability to make those referrals mainly removing us from the jail setting and knowing our inmates more closely. So I looked a little bit at our numbers just for October and November of 2020, and we're sitting at 17 referrals so far. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea, the increase in referrals that I anticipate that we'll see as we continue to reopen programs and provide more referrals to artists helping the homeless.
Thank you, Carrie. Before I hand it off to Karwu, and I want to, Wu shared a video, put together a video, kind of giving a snapshot of the first full year and how things are operating at Kairos House. So I'm going to do a share screen and play that video, and then I'm going to hand it off to Karwu. And I see Aaron Schwartz, who's one of the house managers for Kairos House. So let's do that video, and then I'm going to hand it off to Wu and Aaron.
Originally, I was in Douglas County. I was in there about 6.5 months. The reentry program introduced me to this program, saying it was called Artists Helping the Homeless. They interviewed me, then accepted me in the program, surprisingly, and got out and been here ever since. I was going down a real deep path, hence my 101 months in prison. For the first 30 days you're here, you're not allowed to work, not allowed to do nothing. All you gotta do is sit down and worry about yourself. What can I do better in my life in order to progress? It sucks at first, it's tedious. You have to sit here, kind of get cabin fever, but by the time your 30 days are up, you can start working and start getting things done. You can just take off after that. Start doing small things first, such as, having a license, getting a car, getting my finances in order, and just paying bills on time. I had no sense of direction, no sense of guidance, and no sense of leadership roles or anything like that. And it wasn't until my mental health was strong again that I was able to get into recovery, able to be able to manage money and get a budget. Simple things that an adult was able to do and now pursue more into the future. They ended up offering me a job. Fell in love with it ever since then. We help all things such as, case management, getting guys' life organized, and basically trying to help them basic life skills, help them get to court, so on and so forth. Get things scheduled, making sure they're going to the things that are scheduled. There is no other program like Artists Helping the Homeless. We have a guy here in the program. He works who knows how many hours, and top of that going to school full-time at KU. I feel like there's no choice but to be motivated. When you surround yourself with guys who are actually trying to live in recovery, you have no choice but to live in it. Enjoy what you have now rather than fixating on the past, rather than constantly looking in the future. The future ain't here yet, the past ain't here yet, the present is. So it's something that you need to focus on. What can you get done today to build towards your future tomorrow?
Okay. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Karwu and Aaron to give you some updates directly from our partners.
Well, thank you. My name is Carl Wu. I'm with Artists Helping the Homeless. I'm very, very thankful that we get the opportunity to partner with Douglas County to create this project. Our project is really a full wraparound service for individuals that we house. That meaning that we give them every opportunity to do the best that they know how. We will give them that opportunity, making sure they stay on track and to do all the right things. And so we are very thankful. I was looking at some of the number that Jules had set out to say. I was thinking about from dollars and cents, the 50 emergency room visit, usually that average speaking, each emergency room visit is $2,250. So that's like $112,000 saving right there. And then each ambulance ride in average speaking is anywhere from $700 to $1,000. So right there, we're talking about $26,000. I don't know how much booking is. And I do know that the housing and inmate is rather expensive. I think Douglas County pay up to $90,000 a month to send somebody else to another jail setting. So from a dollars and cents, I think like we are really doing our best to save money for the county. But that's really not the most important part. The most important part is we give the people the opportunity to do better. We provide them that chance to become a contributing member of society to Douglas County. Two of the people we're housing now, both are from Douglas County. We just now enrolled them to Johnson County Community College. They both are starting college next semester, which is, if you look at the statistic, that is really unheard of for inmates. But they are going to college. They're not just trying to get a job in McDonald's. So I think that's what we are so proud of, is the opportunity that the safety net that we provide to give them those things. So we constantly try our best. If they allow us, it is a volunteer program. We cannot force them to do anything. So when they do well, it's them that put in the effort. We are their cheerleaders. We try our best to do the best we know how for them. So I'm very, very thankful to have this opportunity. I think Carrie is correct. I think the number will go way up higher the moment the COVID is kind of calmed down. Like the last 2 months, we see a drastic difference in referral already because of that. But I'm going to let Aaron talk about the specific person, or that maybe he can be, since he works there. Aaron was my prime example of winning. He's now going to KU. I work with him from Kansas City, but now he's my manager. He's going to KU. And last semester, you got a 4.0. Yeah. And so I'm the Chinese parent. They have to have 4.0s. Go ahead.
About me, or
just talk about what you learned.
Okay, so it's been an amazing opportunity for me to come out here and work with not just ourselves helping the homeless, but all of you guys. It's really helped me expand my grasp on like the future that is in this path, and like the further I go, the better things get. And being able to work with the guys in the house on all the way to the simplest things, like waking up, before noon. We usually wake them all up in the morning, and then getting chores done right away. How important it is to make your bed in the morning, because it sets the tone for everything else to fall in together after that. And going from that into, we work with budgeting to where in here they don't pay rent, they don't pay for food and things like that. So once they do establish work after their restriction is over, we work with a budget based off of what would you be having to the side when you are paying the rent, when you are paying utilities, when you're paying for basic necessities. That goes into a savings account. And so we don't keep their money from them, but we help aid them on, hey, you're used to living on this 20%. So when you move out, you're already used to it. So it's not so much of a shock. And, a lot of times when coming out of incarceration, it's such a culture shock. You're going from no freedoms, no movement, no choice to everything. And a lot of times it's easy to fall back into, what do I know? What am I familiar with? Who do I know? Who am I familiar with? And instead, it's sort of a safety net of catching that and saying, hey, here's an opportunity to change directions. You may just not associate with those old people anymore because you're moving in this new direction and bettering your life. And like those sort of things, and seeing the change in guys is like one of the greatest parts about being here and doing what we do. And when somebody really starts to grasp it, it's really an amazing thing.
I also want to add to, majority of the people that we help us run the house are what I call the peer support system. So the reason why they did that, instead of hiring a college graduate, we give them the opportunity to move on in life, and also setting that example. Hey, that is light at the end of the tunnel, so you can do better. That's why we push for school, we push for knowledge, we push for skill. So we actually have a couple of people enrolling in vocational school right now, and to better the skill, instead of just a basic entry level workman, but they can be more like a supervisor level also. So it is the long-term growth that we're looking for as well for them. So in the long run, they will become a contributing member of society versus somebody that will use our system instead. So I think that's something that we're very, very proud of. So, but again, I'm really thankful we have the opportunity to do this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and one other thing, you know, the last few guys that we've had move forward, you know, whether they're still working with us or not, like one of them has, you know, he left and I was like, hey, you know, we could be friends now. Sort of thing. And he's actually at one of the Oxford houses in Lawrence, and he's the president of said Oxford house. And you know, seeing that growth there and seeing him taking a leadership role in a new place just goes to show that like a person who is willing to really adhere and listen and you know say, hey, you know, maybe there's something to this, leaves here and goes straight into another leadership role in his life. And just seeing that type of thing is what makes it worth it to me.
Again, thank you very much. Could we answer any questions?
Well, I was gonna real quick just give a couple, and I want to give Bob Trayansky a minute to speak as well. Bob serves on the board of directors for Artists Helping the Homeless, representing Douglas County, which was part of our partnership, our financial partnership with Artists Helping the Homeless. I want to let Bob just provide some comments real quick, and then I have a couple things I wanted to share about next steps with the project team, and then open it up for questions if that's okay.
I don't have much to say at all of it positive. It's been a real opportunity to serve on the board, and it's been a real learning opportunity for me to see how strong an organization Artists Helping the Homeless is. I'm so impressed by the other board members and just sort of how nimble and flexible this organization is to try to be as responsive as possible to the sort of ever-changing challenges that our populations who are housing insecure face, and folks who are, you know, trying to get back on their feet and to work through a reentry program, work through a recovery program. All of the pieces of this really fit together, and there's just absolute commitment by the rest of the members of the board to support WU and the team at Kairos House and all the projects that AHH is working on. So it's been a real privilege to serve on the board. I've learned a lot, and like I said, I think we can be real confident in Douglas County that we have a great partner.
Thanks, Bob. Real quick, I just wanted to mention some of the things that we're going to be working on in the next year is, you know, I mentioned in the cover memo that Kairos House is only able to serve 8 clients at one time with 2 staff members. So 10 residents at any one time in what is a duplex facility. The total project is a duplex. Our original intent was to be able to expand with a special use permit with the city of Lawrence once we established a strong track record at this project, and be able to serve up to 12 clients at one time with the 2 staff members there for a total of 14. What we have unfortunately learned is that there are some significant challenges with the fire code that we're going to have to figure out a way to either live with the current circumstances with the just serving 8 people the best we can, and or make some investments in what is probably up to a $50,000 fire suppression system. My partner in crime, Jay Zimmershed, has come and has toured Kairos House and met with WU, has also met with the Lawrence Fire Inspector, and helped me on some calls with the state fire marshal, trying to figure out what we can and we can't do. And unfortunately, I think our only avenue to move forward is to invest in what's probably a $50,000 fire suppression system. But another alternative that WU would like to look at, and I think it's a really good idea, is to start looking more at how do we grow our Oxford House network in the community, because one of the existing challenges that Artists Helping the Homeless and the Kairos House staff have on an ongoing basis is, where do folks go next? Where can they go? You know, how can they keep serving folks at Kairos House, and exit folks into another supportive environment, but kind of like a stage 2. Artists Helping the Homeless has an excellent stage 2 apartment complex in Kansas City, Finnegan Place, that many of us saw on our first field trip. Having an environment like that, or a facility, or just more Oxford houses is on the drawing board for future consideration. And we're going to include Friends of Recovery in our project team meetings and figure out how we can, through Artists Helping the Homeless or with their leadership, try to grow that network. And also grow that network perhaps for our female population, because I know when we have our our quarterly meetings, the word of mouth of this program is really strong. And the females that are involved in the justice system that need these services, they want to have access to this resource as well. And so that's important to us. We're mindful of that. I think I also wanted to mention the having transitions come online in the new year is going to be significant as well, because some of the folks that Karwu was not able to serve at Cairo's house were individuals that had some significant mental health issues. And I think Wu can speak to that a little more if there's questions, but the level of comfort was just not there to be able to successfully serve those folks. So I really am heartened to know that we have transitions coming online, and that's just going to be another tool in our community toolbox to help with some of our folks and hopefully have them transition to a more positive future. And I think that's all we have, and we're happy to stand for questions.
Thanks, Jill. Questions, commissioners?
Well, my only questions were going to be how we can do the same for the women who need this, and what's the difference between an Oxford house and this system. But it sounds like they work with each other, that they connect one stage with another. So you really answered my questions, Jill, but I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about the Oxford House system and how the county gets connected with that. How do we progress into that world? I know I've been in meetings where it's been talked about, but it sounds like this is gonna actually lead to some action maybe in the next year or two. So a little more explanation about Oxford houses.
Yeah, Wu, would you be comfortable giving a little background on what Oxford houses are and how they operate?
Yes, the differences between what we do, we are like a respite house. We are 24-hour monitors. We have staff on site constantly. We provide all the wraparound service, from medication to transportation to all the support they need. When you move to a transitional house or Oxford houses, the difference is they become more individual. So they still have the governing body, they still have the accountability, but it's not 24-hour monitor. You are on your own, you pay rent, you do work, you pay rent, but you are accountable for your behavior. You are not encouraged to use any substance as well. And most Oxford house, basically, one strike you out. If you relapse, they kick you out. And so kind of house by house. And so they have a president that lives in the house. They have weekly meetings and stuff. So it's a step towards a next growth. And so the respite house is totally 24 monitor and more accountability. As you move to the Oxford house, it's like your kid going from high school to college in a sense. So now they have a little bit more freedom. They do the things that they want, but they still have the basic accountability. But the challenge of a house is if you move them too fast, then you have not quite learned the accountability that you might get into trouble faster. And so that it's kind of like a learning process until you learn all the life skill as a high school kid before you can go to college. In that same sense, I think that's the best analogy I can come through. But I think in my mind, Lawrence definitely need a little bit more, another house for moving forward. In fact, I asked Jill already, so I'm going to look into that a little bit more. Maybe next year we can create the next step. Because I did the Finnegan house in Kansas City, is out of the same frustration because we had no place to go the next level. What do we do now? They to grow really well. But at Finnegan House, every one of the people that we serve now have their own car. How often do you hear all these homeless inmates have their own car, drive themselves to work? Little 90% of people we house there have all their own transportation, which in itself is an amazing story. So, but this is what we are looking forward to, because in the long run, I think the growth for the city and the county is really important, making sure they can grow and take care of themselves in the long run. So we can guide them there so that they can have the opportunity to grow.
And my two, I've actually experienced Oxford. I had resided in one in Johnson County. So in short, Oxford is a peer-ran, peer-governed sort of body. And so like there will be an individual house to where, for an example, I always kind of explain it to the guys as it's basically the house without AHH. And that includes the case management, that includes the rides, that includes the helps with medication, that includes the program meetings, that includes all of the things that kind of help create that buffer zone between coming out of incarceration and coming into the real world. And so when somebody comes out, A, they have to interview at the Oxford House. B, the residents of the Oxford House have to accept them. And C, they have to have a down payment and a certain amount of rent paid forward in order to get into the door. Now they're in the door. This person doesn't have an ID. This person doesn't have a cell phone. This person has to sign up for DECA. He has to get a eval at Burton Ash. He has no idea about the bus system in Lawrence. And so what am I going to do? You know, and that's just if he gets into the house. And so going straight from incarceration into an Oxford House is like, it would be a very difficult thing to do. And so like implementing the skills that they learn here at AHH and being able to kind of get that stuff established beforehand, they continue that the DECA or any outpatient, they get in the habit of going to regular recovery-based meetings. They have their ID, they have a job started. So there's a lot more of an opportunity coming in the door. Because Oxford House is very independent based, to where it's based completely on you, and you have to stay afloat. You have to go to these many meetings, you have to pay this much rent, and hold a governing position in the house, whether it be president, comptroller, treasurer, the various things. And so like this program really helps as a sort of like slowing the fall from incarceration into a place like that, to where they're ready at that point to go into something like that and be able to thrive.
Hey, Jill.
Yeah.
Can I throw one other piece in here, because we had an interesting story that happened this week with one of our peer fellows that relates to Oxford House, because it's not just for people who are moving through reentry or coming out of the criminal justice system. So we have a peer fellow now who is working and starting at the library, and they shared with the other peers during the peer seminar that 2 years ago they were in the LMHED. They connected with the Detox Project. They connected with care coordinator Mary Jackson, and Mary worked with them as they came out of the Detox Project to get them into Oxford House. And the reason they went to Oxford House is because their spouse did not welcome them home to be around their children, and they needed a longer term solution to get back on their feet and to get their recovery stable and firm. And so that resource was the thing that they credit to providing the stability that they needed to move all the steps forward. And now they are employed as a peer fellow with our project, and they're giving back to the folks that are finding themselves in a difficult time and outside of the library, and as the winter is coming on. So, you know, it's this full circle system of care thing. And if you put all the right pieces in place, and we need more pieces, and there are definitely paths toward finding those. But Oxford House is a resource that we need more of. That is absolutely true.
I want to let Mike Brower wanted to add a couple things, and I know Oxford houses were a thing that he talked about a lot when we first started talking about this project.
Hey, thanks, Jill. Thanks for commissioners for just a moment. I'm just jumping in because, you know, this is something we've been talking about for several years. While in the 8 years I've been here, we've doubled the number of Oxford houses. We still only have 4. So there's a real need there. especially for Oxford House space for women with children. So I've had a lot of conversations with Friends of Recovery and how that works. And part of the weekly fee that the residents each pay goes towards saving up money into a fund for the local Oxford chapter to start new houses. And so for the most part, we've always had money here in Douglas County to open new houses. We just haven't had leadership within the Oxford chapter to start those houses because they require that there's a champion amongst people with the Oxford House experience to start new houses. And so, but I think with our investment in smart recovery, with programs like Artists Helping the Homeless, with a lot of the expansion of behavioral health services, we have a lot more people now within the Oxford system. I think that this may be an opportune time. The one piece I feel is good to bring up, and not that I'm putting together any kind of proposal at the moment, but in the city of Topeka, with their Oxford House system, they have a reentry program where they have funds about $5,000 or $6,000 a year that goes towards helping people get into an Oxford House who are coming out of jail, coming out of prison, coming out of a detox center for us, maybe even coming out of transitions, where that fund allows the house to recover deposit and first 2 weeks of rent so that person can get in, get on their feet and get a job. So I think that's one way that we could support an Oxford system, and along with partnering for Friends of Recovery to make sure the local chapter knows that we have this need.
So we're just going to start talking to them with a little more intention this year, basically. And I do, on the horizon for women and children are a future partnership with DECA for transitional housing. Then that's consistent with the commitment that we made with the behavioral health sales tax. So I know that our friends at DECA are working on that. So I think look for more on that. But I know DECA uses some of the numbers that reentry referred, the additional numbers that can be accounted for in there came from our partner agencies, like I mentioned in my email. So some came from Burt Nash, some came from DECA, some came from Heartland RADAC. Artists Helping the Homeless has really been a great community partner when they have the space to do it.
I have a quick question for Carrie. Carrie, I'd just love to get your perspective on reentry before Artists Helping the Homeless and reentry after Artists Helping the Homeless, and just what's that been like for you and the work that you do?
Yeah, so given COVID, it is almost nearly impossible to place an inmate into an Oxford House or really any other setting upon release. Carwoo has really been our go-to for housing. I would say before Carwoo, we relied mainly on Oxford houses for that transitional. We also worked with Hearthstone and Solutions, our other recovery-based housing that we were discussing in another meeting this week. But it has just opened the door. Carwoo comes in, and just to explain a little bit about the process, we will make the referral to Carwoo. He generally within 24 hours is here to do a assessment with the individual and make a decision on placement. And then there's literally a van sitting in our parking lot that says AHH across the side that picks that inmate up. Their staff comes into the lobby and greets them as they walk out of booking right upon their release. And I have witnessed it firsthand, just the welcoming of they have been there, they have been in their shoes before. Everybody is a peer to one another. and the comfort that that gives the individual just getting out of custody really makes a difference. In contrast with an Oxford house, we have to kind of get them there. There's a bridge to cross to get the deposit and rent and interview and all of those other factors. Whereas with Karwu and his system, with everything wraparound, they get where they need to go. We work with them on IDs, on social security cards, birth certificates. All of those services are provided. So it's really, when he says wraparound service, there's not much that he does not provide, or we don't figure out how to get it. Does that answer your question?
I mean, the numbers are great, Jill, and I appreciate that. But right now, I think the numbers don't tell the whole story just because of COVID and all that. And so, Carrie, I was just hoping you could tell a little bit of that story. And you did really. I mean, that's exactly what I was looking for is, we're trying to make an impact so that we reduce recidivism, and we don't have those numbers yet. That's just not available to us yet. So as we assess the success of, I don't want to say success, but the priority we put on funding Artists Helping the Homeless, I really want to hear from you that, yes, this is making a big difference in a small sample size. And it sounds to me like it's creating a resource for you that you didn't have before, and that you feel is really helping those folks who are leaving the jail. And from what Karwu is telling us, we're having some really good success. Not as much success as I'm sure he likes, because I know he wants 100%. But I think that's a big order for this population and the challenges they're working through. So yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
I'd also say, on the reentry team that works with Carrie is also Jeremy Rowland with DECA is regularly on our calls, and he's there in the jail, works with Carrie and her staff. And then Paul Leffingwell with Bert Nash is also a member of that team. And they really all are a great resource and work very cohesively to make sure that they're identifying the folks that most could thrive most in this program. And we're grateful for the support of the commission. And we hope we can have some different numbers here moving forward.
Other questions or comments, commissioners?
I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you. You guys are, I was really excited to hear how everything's going, and it always brings a smile to my face when I'm driving around town and I see one of your vans, because I do see them around, and I know that means you're working and you're helping someone, and so that's always good. I really appreciate everything you're doing. I was really excited and supportive of the program, and just keep up the good work. And congratulations on your 4.0. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you all for coming tonight. Mike, thanks for jumping in and sharing your perspective on it. I'm excited too about it, but it also sort of, I think, has illuminated we still need more services. We've got to do more. We need more. Substance abuse for males is really, how we provide that treatment. It just, that jumped out to me in your report, Jill, and what you put together is we just still really struggle with substance abuse treatment for males, and then finding supportive housing for females with children or without children is what I'm hearing tonight. So the work isn't done, obviously, but thank you for the impact that you're making. Really appreciate it. Okay, with that, we will move on to this is a regular agenda item, and while we're not voting on it, we do need to take public comment. So is there anyone there at the courthouse, Sarah, who would like to provide public comment?
I don't have anyone here for that.
Is there anybody online who would like to provide public comment on this item?
Not
Go ahead and use the raise your hand feature. Okay. Now we'll move on to our next agenda item. And the next agenda item is a planning department item to consider rezoning Z20-00312, which is 3.5 acres at 145 East 1250 Road, County Route 1045, from GB to AG2. And a regular feature of our meetings, Mary Miller is back again, I think. Mary?
Let me see if we,
Back.
yeah.
Is that Mary? I see Mary S in there, but I don't see Mary Miller.
Hold on just a minute.
Okay.
Commissioners, we're going to try to reach out to Mary and see if we can get her and figure out if she had some technical difficulties. I don't know if we want to jump ahead.
Yeah,
and-
sir, do we want to, I see Stuart's here. Do we want to move ahead to the legislative statement?
Yeah, I think that would be good. Can move them over. So Stuart Little and Mallory Lutz are joining us for a discussion of the county's legislative platform. Stuart and Mallory, thanks for letting us rearrange our schedule here a little bit, and this will get you off the call a little faster. So before I turn it over to Stuart to kind of talk about the platform as draft put together for it, I want to make sure we acknowledge Daviana Humble, and she's done a lot of work in this process to help pull together comments from various parts of the organization, and her work on the platform I really appreciate. So with that, I guess, Stuart, do you have some comments you'd like to state about the platform before we get questions from commissioners?
All right, can you hear me okay? All right, great. Good evening. Thank you, Sarah, members of the commission. Mallory and I are here to answer any questions. We've worked with Daviana to get this put together, and a couple of the things that we did were update the language in some of the items that are listed under priorities, to update the crisis center to reflect the funding that came from the state and the support from the state, and kind of ongoing what we would anticipate needing to be asking for, as well as just an update of the South Florence trafficway issue related to the passage of the Eisenhower transportation plan. And then there were a couple of issues that are added as kind of new topics on here that were that we kind of kicked around, and with regard to, frankly, obviously related to COVID-19, but the public health language, and then some reference to the criminal justice reform efforts, and a couple of other things in there that it may look a little different from last year, because part of what we did was reorganize some things and consolidate criminal justice reform and community corrections as a suggestion for you all to consider, and then pulling some of the environmental and sustainability topics together as topics for your review. So you have the document in front of you. I don't know if I left anything out, Mallory, that we needed to add, but those would be kind of our preliminary comments, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I think the only other thing, if you said it, I apologize, but I think we added a section in there on clarifying KEMA. KEMA will be a big topic in the first several weeks of the legislative session by all indications that we're getting. So I just wanted to toss some language in there for you all to consider.
And that's the item labeled clarifying county authority, which is right after the criminal justice reform segment. The legislature, obviously COVID prompted a vigorous discussion of what's the state's role, what's the county role, what's the city role, what's the public health officer's role in dealing with a public health emergency. And we've been watching what the interim committee did, and we just want to make sure that you all are aware, and that anything that may come out of the 2021 legislature does not diminish any of your authority or your county public health officer's authority.
I'll start it off. I had just one question, something that came up towards the end of the session last year about notice when we changed taxes. Sarah, do you remember this? I tried to do some research this afternoon to dig that up. When that came out of the legislature about how we would have to provide notice to county residents, and it was I remember our county clerk thinking, oh my gosh, how are we even going to do that? And was this in here and I didn't realize it? Or is that something we think we need to weigh in on? Stuart, Mallory, Sarah, you have any thoughts on that?
Well, Sarah, I don't know if you want me to go ahead briefly, but there was a bill that the relevant issue in here is on the spending and tax lid issue that's on my copies on page 2. But what happened was the legislature, part of what we have been working on, what local government folks have been working on, is repealing the tax lid that was imposed several years ago. And the proposal that came forward last year and eventually passed the legislature, but the governor vetoed, for the issue that you've raised in particular, was the burden it would put upon local governments to kind of pull a whole bunch of information together. The tax lid repeal last year was combined with what was called a Truth in Taxation Act, where a county would be required to have a public hearing, pull all of the taxing entities together, have a public hearing, give notice to everyone on one document, and then have the hearing. And then you would be required to vote at the meeting at which you had the hearing on whether to increase the mill levy or and weigh into that and make that a public vote. The governor vetoed that and said the time frames are out of order for our tax calculation process, and we're not exactly clear on what all taxing is. It, for example, is a school district required to be in that? And so it was a mess essentially, and it passed out during the emergency session, or the veto session, and the governor vetoed it. So the Kansas Association of Counties, League of Municipalities have been working on language in a bill that would clarify, simplify, streamline that path. We've shared it with your staff to make sure that it's not anything that's going to be any hurdles for you all. And so that's kind of that topic, although not specifically addressed, falls under the spending and tax lid issue, in which if the legislature is going to do anything, number one, repeal the tax lid. Number two, don't make it harder for us to do our work and take care of that process.
Thanks. I'm glad we're thinking about that, because I think it was, my guess is it's in the idea of transparency and all, but in a way it just makes processes so much more confusing that people can't understand how this works, and I just struggle with that. So I guess that was one thing I just wanted to elevate about, did we want to include that? But it sounds like, to me, it sort of sounds like, Stuart, you're feeling like the Kansas counties, the Association of Counties is paying attention to this. And
it is, and the information we've shared with your staff is along those lines. What the legislature chooses to do with those recommendations is up to them, and that's where things may get tricky. So, of
course, yeah. Commissioners, other items?
I don't have any questions or concerns. I think it looks really good, and I like the way that it's been streamlined and kind of reordered, and I think it represents us very well. And I guess I just want to make the comment that I'm so glad that we have Stuart and Mallory representing us, helping us with our connection and our relationship with the legislature. It feels like now this document actually literally has legs, and I think it will. I think goes a long way to have your help as the county, faces a lot of important issues that are in the hands of the legislature. So thank you for your work on behalf of Douglas County and work on this document.
Well, I appreciate that. I would note, and thank you for those kind words. Two things I would mention. Number one, we added at the end of this an issue with regard to the technical program getting added to the legislative agenda, and that's on the list in support of their efforts. Wanted to point that out because that's something new that wasn't on there last year. Would mention that. And number two, obviously, there are going to be 3 new legislative members of the Douglas County delegation split between other counties. And we're setting up meetings with those folks as we speak, just to be able to have a conversation with them about the issues that are going to be on your legislative agenda if it is approved. So that's kind of where we are. And thank you. I appreciate your comments, Commissioner.
Stuart and Mallory, thanks so much for your work on this. I was really pleased to see the spot on housing there, especially the last sentence. We had Renee Kuhl here last week talking about it, and that was one of the questions we specifically asked, like, are there state level policies that we need to look at? And it looks like you've included some of her thoughts in there. I don't know if that, I'm sure that was intentional, right? That's exactly, you listened to our meetings and added that, and staff brought that to your attention.
I believe Ms. Joliker was very articulate in exactly what those words should look like. So
very helpful. I was really happy to see that, because I think, the impacts of COVID-19 are just going to be tremendous on our vulnerable populations there, and housing is really one we have to focus on. I'd be interested, and if you, I don't know, we had an article in our local paper recently about Peaslee Tech and its request to the state legislature, and it raises some interesting loyalties. I think we are close enough to Washburn Tech, and we're close enough to Johnson County that. Do you have any sense on that from where? Or is it too early to know where the legislature might lie on this? My research says we don't have many technical schools that are as close as the 3 of those technical schools would be together. Any sense on that, or that may not be something you want to weigh in on?
I probably don't at this point, without kind of talking a bit more with folks about it. I would be hesitant to venture any kind of opinion until I know a little bit more. I apologize if that's not what you wanted, but that's probably the most realistic way to handle this right now.
That's just fine. I think our community is going to be wrestling with that as that moves forward, and just what that means. But I don't want them to. I think they should talk about it. But if it's not going to be a reality, I'm not sure it's worth our conversation early on. So I think that's what I'm getting at, and just trying to get a sense of that. All right, if there's nothing else, commissioners, let's open it up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
We don't have anyone at the courthouse.
Not seen anybody online.
Thank you. Commissioners, if there's no other questions, I'd take a motion to consider the approval of the Douglas County 2021 state legislative I think that's a misprint, for the 2021 legislative session. Statement, not state. Yep.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Stuart and Mallory and Daviana.
Right.
Yeah, great work. This is a really great document. Really, I think identifies some of the priorities we'd like to see at the state level. So appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
And now we'll have our Mary Miller update from Sarah. Sarah, any luck there?
Yes, commissioners, Mary is on. We're moving her over. She was Mary S., so she was a little incognito this time, but we're moving her over now. Mary, let us know if you can hear us, and thanks.
Yeah, I watched the whole meeting. I'm sorry, I did not realize my name changed to Mary's, so I didn't know that was me. So thank you. I am Mary Miller, City County Planner, and this rezoning, the first one we'll be doing, is for approximately about 3.5 acres. And let me pull up my presentation. Oh.
When Mary pulls up her presentation, it's great to have Bob Troyansky in there so we can see that beautiful building in the background there. That's amazing. Yes.
If you're having difficulty, Mary, you should.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it up on the screen. I have it on my desktop. Let me try sharing again, see if it sees it this time. There it is.
There we go. Looks like it's coming up.
Must have been one crazy night. Thank you. And this rezoning is from the general business district to the Ag 2 or transitional agricultural district. It's for about 3.5 acres at 145 East 1250 Road. The graphic at the top shows the general location. It's in the southern portion of the county, about halfway between Baldwin Junction and the South County line. If the red dot shows the location. The kind of blurry image at the bottom is from presentations we did during our public hearings and our public meetings and coming to the commission meetings, showing where commercial zoning was in the county and areas that we felt should be rezoned. So the red arrows are commercial zoning that we thought was appropriate. The black arrows are those that we thought should be rezoned because the uses were not commercial uses. And the subject property is highlighted in yellow. And so staff will be moving ahead and trying to initiate some rezonings in this area. This application came forward early because the property owner would like to build a residence and it's not possible with the current zoning. This shows the property. Since the rezoning application was submitted, the property owner did go ahead and merge this parcel with the parcel to the west. So he's made his parcel larger, but I'm still showing the parcel as it is in the staff report and as it'll be in the resolution. The subject property currently has split zoning. It has GB or general business zoning for a portion of the east side and the rest is Ag 2. And if you look at the bottom graphic, it shows the floodplain where all of this parcel is in the floodplain. The only place that can be developed is right along East 1250 Road, which is the general business zoning, which does not allow residential development. And so in order to build residentially, he requested this rezoning. So as we look at the golden factors, we look at the zoning of the area. The graphic on the right is the subject property and the property to the south. It shows this strip of commercial zoning. There is a commercial area. This used to be a motel. I believe it has a little strip of cabins. The rest of it is not currently commercial. This was zoned when the zoning regs were originally adopted in 1966. The rest of the zoning is Ag 2 and Ag 1, depending upon the size of the parcel. And this shows the zoning this is the subject property, and this shows the zoning to the north. And so most of the zoning in the area is Ag 1 and Ag 2. And this rezoning request to the Ag 2 district would be similar to other zonings in the area. As far as land use, the land use of the property and the surrounding properties, primarily they're woodland with all the floodplain that we showed in the earlier graphic. There are residences. You can see they're clustered right along 1250 Road, which is where he would intend to build as well. And there's one up to the north. And so the land use being residential would also be compatible with the existing land uses. We look at the character of the area. I look west of Highway 59, assuming this kind of a change wouldn't impact land to the east. And so the character of this area is principally agricultural. There's quite a bit of woodland and wooded stream corridors. And then We have the larger and smaller parcels depending upon if it's zoned Ag 1 or Ag 2. And so the Ag 2 zoning would allow residential development, which would be in keeping with the character of the area as it is now, rather than allowing commercial uses, which would alter the character somewhat. There are environmentally sensitive lands on the property. The figure in the top left shows stream corridor and wetlands. On the bottom left, that is class 1 and class 2 soils. On the bottom right, we see prime farmland in green. And then at the top right, we see the steep slopes and then the pink area, which is the floodplain. And the floodplain basically covers all the environmentally sensitive areas are combined together. The tan area is farmland of statewide importance, which is not an environmentally sensitive area. And so this is the area that's zoned general business, and he's requesting the rezoning to transitional agriculture. So with the rezoning, it would be possible to develop in the area that does not contain the environmentally sensitive lands. So it should not impact those sensitive features. We look at other items, golden factors, such as what would be the detrimental effect on nearby properties of the rezoning. Well, the rezoning to the Ag 2 district would reduce the number of uses that would be permitted, and they would be of lower intensity that is currently permitted in the GB district. So the rezoning should have no detrimental effects on nearby properties. We look at what is the suitability of the property to the uses to which it's restricted under the current zoning. The GB district allows commercial uses, limited industrial and community facilities. And looking at the small area that's located outside of the environmentally sensitive areas, it does not seem well suited to these uses. Very small scale commercial or community uses might be appropriate in this location, but it is very suitable for the uses that are permitted in the Ag 2 district and the proposed residential use. The property was developed, the last, in the aerials, it appears there was a residence there or a building there in the 1980s, but I don't see any development since then on our historical aerials. We always look at what would be the gain to the public health or public benefit from the denial of the application. The denial would allow the GB district to remain. So the commercial or industrial development would be able to occur here. However, this is not an identified area in the comprehensive plan, or it does not appear to be an area that's really ripe for commercial development since it's been zoned commercially since 1966 and is not developed. So there's no gains that we've identified to the public health or safety or welfare from denying the application. And as far as conformance with the area plan, this is not located in the urban growth area and there are no adopted area plans. The Planning Commission considered this at their November 18th meeting, and they voted unanimously to forward the rezoning request to you with a recommendation for approval based on the findings in the staff report. And I believe the applicant is here available if you have questions for him. And I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any for me.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions, commissioners?
I don't have any questions.
I don't have any either. Let's open it up for public. Is the applicant here? No, the applicant's not here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the name that I had on the agenda. Unless if they are here, please use the raise your hand function.
Not seeing the applicants. Let's open it up for public comment. Sarah, anybody there at the courthouse for public comment?
No, we don't have anyone.
Jill, anyone online?
No.
Okay. Seeing no public comment, we'll bring it back for comments. Any additional questions and motions?
I'm happy to make a motion if we're ready. I move to approve the request to rezone Z-20-0031 approximately 3.5 acres located at 145 East 1250 Road from general business to AG2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 3-0. And we'll move on to our next item, which is also a rezoning. of Z 20-00328, 11.5 acres. That's at the 1700 block of East 902 Road, from CP to AG2.
Thank you, Commissioners. Mary Miller, County Planner, and I will hopefully get my screen shared a little quicker. This is a unique rezoning request. It's necessary because when our zoning regulations were revised in February of 2020, we developed a system to automatically convert the zoning of several properties, almost all the properties in the county. And the agricultural district had to be divided into 3 different districts. And the CP district was intended for land in the urban growth area that was platted or divided by a certificate of survey. And so that's how we addressed it. Anything that was in the urban growth area that had been platted or divided by a certificate of survey automatically converted to CP. And it caught the subject property and converted it as well, which made, it had a conditional use permit for a mini storage approved, and that automatic conversion made that a non-conforming use. And so they requested this rezoning to remove that non-conforming status. The subject property is located in the 1700 block of East 902 Road. It's just east of Highway 10, and as you can tell, it's just northwest of the city limits of Lawrence, which is highlighted in bluish, kind of light blue. Rock Chalk Park is down to the southeast. It contains approximately 11.5 acres, and the conditional use permit for the property was approved primarily based on the location of the Westar substation. It has an approved conditional use permit to allow it to expand considerably. And so residential uses just adjacent to that substation did not seem appropriate. This shows the subject property. It's in the process of being developed. The CUP was approved in 2017, but there were some conditions of approval. One of them is that East 902 Road is improved up to this driveway. And so they need to get that completed. They did put in a retaining wall and did some of the earthwork. So their CUP permit has been retained. It does have a time frame. It has a few years, and if they don't get their use in, then the CUP would expire, or they would have to request an extension. And this is the area with the current substation. And this shows how it would expand with the conditional use permit that was approved for it, which explains the reasoning why a mini storage was seen to be appropriate for the property to the west. So with our golden factors, we look at the zonings. We do have other CP zoning that converted. This land up here was divided through a certificate of survey, as was this land. And this land just converted, like I said, it shouldn't have, but we didn't catch that. The other zoning in the area is Ag 2 and Ag 1, and then the city zoning to the southeast. Rezoning to the Ag 2 district would be consistent with other zoning in the area. This shows the land uses. The subject property is shown in black. The highlighted yellow areas are the residential areas. It's residential areas that are approved with certificates of surveys. And there's a parcel to the east that's just been developed with a residence for quite some time. The green area is city parkland. The blue designates utilities, and the remainder is agricultural or woodland. And so the mini storage being located right between the highway and that substation would be an appropriate land use. It would be compatible with land uses in the area. This shows the character of the area. It's at the rural urban fringe, so it has a mix of uses. As far as the urban component of the area, there is a recreation, open space, and multi-dwelling residential uses. As far as the rural portion, it has quite a bit of woodland and wooded stream corridors, floodplain, and agriculture. And then it does have quite a bit of residential development, relatively speaking, primarily on the west side of K10 and up to the north. And so this proposed change, or proposed rezoning would not alter the use. It would just make it remove the non-conforming status. But the mini storage use being adjacent to the substation would still be seen as not altering the character of the area, but would be compatible with it. This shows environmentally sensitive lands. There are no steep slopes or class 1 or 2 soils on the subject property. When the conditional use permit was approved, prime farmlands were not included as an environmentally sensitive land. And so it's had quite a bit of earthwork done to it. If the CUP would be to expire and a new conditional use permit would be requested, or if they expected to expand the activity, a new CUP would be required, we would look at all the environmentally sensitive lands at that time. However, as the CUP has already been approved and the land has been disturbed for the earthwork, I don't believe that revising the rezoning would affect the environmentally sensitive lands. Other things that we look at are what would be the detrimental effect of the rezoning. The positive effect would be removing the non-conforming status for the approved conditional use permit. It would provide a compatible use to be located next to the substation. And so as it's been an approved use and the impacts on neighbors was evaluated with a review of the conditional use permit, of the border along the north side of the subject property and also the access drive north of the substation is to be heavily landscaped, creating a buffer between that and the properties to the north. And so with the conditions of the CUP, the rezoning should have no impact, no detrimental impact on nearby properties. The property is not well suited to the uses that are permitted in the current zoning district. The CP is a protective district for more dense residential, rural residential development. And it's the location right next to the substation. It's not well suited for residential rural development, but it is well suited for the approved conditional use permit and for the limited range of uses that would be allowed in the Ag 2 district. The property has been used as agricultural since it was zoned in 1966, but it does have an approved CUP, and the applicant has contacted me, which is when we noticed the incorrect zoning. And so they may have plans to move ahead with their development project. We always look at would there be any public gains from the denial of the rezoning request. And as it was already gone through the conditional use permit process for this use, and as it would prohibit the location of the dense residential development next to the substation, we don't recognize any public gain to be achieved from denying the rezoning request. It does comply with the recommendations in the area plan. The K10 and Farmers Turnpike plan shows it as purple, which is office research, as well as the substation to the east. And this use does allow several types of office and research uses, but it does allow the mini warehouse use as well. The Planning Commission considered this at their November 18th meeting and voted unanimously to forward it to the County Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings in the report. And I do believe the applicant is here unless they have trouble getting into the meeting. And I'll be happy to answer questions if you have any for me.
Thank you, Mary. Commissioners, any questions?
I don't have any.
One of the things I was checking, Mary, just to confirm my thinking, is when I looked at the use table, we're not adding any permitted uses really that weren't included in the CP, right? So by rezoning, any new uses would require a new CUP. That was the way I understood it. Is that correct?
That's right. You know, if the CUP would be to expire, they could do anything that's allowed in the Ag 2 district, which is pretty limited, or they could apply for a new CUP. Or if they needed to change, wanted to add uses, they would have to go through the CUP process. Yeah.
It did look like there was a few permitted uses that weren't in the, some agritourism and things like that. But I think that I was comfortable in that. So just wanted to check and make sure that my understanding was correct. I see David Hamby has joined the meeting. David, anything on behalf of the applicant?
No, I just wanted to say I'm here to answer any questions you might have. I appreciate you considering this.
Thanks, David. I think we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anybody at the courthouse, Sarah, who'd like to provide public comment on this item?
We don't have anyone at the courthouse.
Thank you. Anybody online, Jill?
No.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comment section. Up for motions, comments, additional questions.
I'll make a motion if we're ready. We're ready? Okay. Move to approve rezoning Z-20 00328, 11 and a half acres at 17 in the 1700 block of East 902 Road from CP to AG2.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thanks, Mary, for your work on this. I know I expect we're going to get a lot of these over the next year or so. This is our zoning of the county. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes 3-0.
Thanks, Mary.
Thanks for being here, David.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll move on. If you're joining us late, we already did our legislative statement. We moved that up to the second item. And we'll jump to item 5, which is CARES Act funding contingency. And Sarah, take it away. And I see Brooks here as well.
Thank you, commissioners. Yes, I'm joined by Brooke Sauer, who has been just so incredibly helpful in managing our CARES Act dollars. Included a late addition to the packet is our updated memo. Brooke has updated the distribution of direct aid funds, so you can see the latest as to how that is coming through. You're going to see the money starting to flow. So there have been changes over even since this, when you saw this the last week, so that money is beginning to move out. Brooke has included some graphs and to sort of indicate how that is moving amongst our major programs. We included about on page 8, the updated information related to what the commissioners did last week. So the reallocation of $652,111.52, and then how those funds were distributed. And then hot off the presses as of today are additional funds that have been allocated for that are available for reallocation. There's a couple caveats before we jump into that conversation. Included in your packet is a plan amendment that would fall under the Douglas County plan for the well-being branch that has been stood up by Unified Command. I do have some representatives in the waiting room if you'd like to hear more from those folks about their proposal. Unified Command felt like it was important that we need to really begin to focus on our community well-being in this process as we move out of response and into recovery from the pandemic. And so we asked Patrick Schmitz with Bert Nash and Margaret Morris with the Lawrence Arts Center to co-lead that branch. And they've been working closely with Robert to develop some proposals for how they can help lead the community as we move out of this. Bob Triansky's been helping them as well, and we hope to integrate some of the already existing programs and functions that the county is using. What my recommendation would be is that if the commissioners were to, I brought that before you because it is new and to be consistent with how we've treated programs to this date. It's new, so I wanted you to see it. It is consistent though with other types of similar programs we've done in other areas in terms of marketing and promotion and different things. So I do believe that it's an allowable expense, but since it wasn't something the commissioners voted on originally, I wanted you to see it. Are there questions on that item before we move on?
So Sarah, I feel like I'm not understanding something here. So correct me if I'm wrong. I just have a project amendment and the narrative is resources needed to pay for expenses. Am I missing a page that I should have read? Is there a link here? When I look at the agenda.
Brooke, are they looking at the right plan amendment?
Yeah, it should be a direct aid amendment form, and then at the top it has the program that we're reallocating funds from, which was a sheriff's office project that came in way under. And so the request was to reallocate $25,000 from the surplus on that project to this project. It's just one page.
Generally, we don't necessarily go into a lot of detail. If you would like more information as to what it is, I would be glad to move Robert and or Margaret and Patrick over, and they could speak a little bit more fully about what their plan is. They have assured us that they'd be able to spend these dollars within this program year. Would that be helpful? I'll go ahead and move them over.
Commissioners, what do you think? I mean, I'd like to hear what they have planned. I mean, it just says the Well-Being Committee, and that I'd just like to have a little more information.
Yeah, I would like to have some more information also, please.
Okay, so I've moved Robert and Margaret and Patrick over, and I'm not sure which of you would like to speak specifically to this item.
Hey, this
is... I can start, and Patrick can go ahead. Go, Robert.
I was just going to key it up to you, Margaret, so I appreciate you jumping in. Go ahead.
Okay. So the Community Wellbeing Branch is really
struggling. Your connection appears
created to. We might need somebody else to.
Yeah, Margaret, your connection is pretty bad.
Address people's mental health and well-being during the pandemic, and really
any better? Can you hear me now?
That's better.
That's better. Go ahead, Margaret.
This is Patrick Schmitz. I'll jump in until Margaret gets back. The community well-being subgroup of the Unified Command community during this pandemic, our focus is to create programs, information, resources, and pull that together to share with the community as a whole, to give them information on how to cope and deal with life under a pandemic. We also have a focus on the healthcare providers and first responders that are also at the front lines of this work. We have, over the course of several meetings, developed some different ways of coming up with a way of unifying our county, the whole community, under a logo. It's a heart with DGKS on it. And what we're going to do with that is we're going to actually attach a URL to it. Or is that right? Not a URL. What is that code, Robert or Bob?
The QR code.
Code. Thank you,
I
Michelle. And that QR code will bring them to resources. And that is, we have developed a variety of ways of getting that out to the community: yard signs, bumper stickers, window clings, large scale posters to put in like the community centers, the fitness centers, that kind of stuff. And then Margaret was also, then some Facebook posts, and then Margaret was also exploring some possible radio or maybe a video ad. And Margaret, are you with us again for that? Because I think you have the most update on that.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Sorry about my connection.
Yes, you're great.
I'm doing the best I can. Okay, I'm on my phone. So the group came up. There's one of our goals of the group is, in addition to developing the resources and gathering what's in the community, finding new ones, and then possibly creating additional programs to support mental health and well-being. And one of the goals is communication strategy, like how do we share all this information out to people so they can use it. And so we thought as a group that was probably one of the, as we're gathering things and seeing what's out there and getting it all in one place, the communication strategy was pretty important. So that is what, the yard signs and the window clings and all that kind of stuff is about. So we were looking into, in addition to kind of the collateral items, actually looking for to have some radio spots and, kind of PSA type radio spots and potential short videos to go on social media, things like that. And so really it's about, really quite frankly, just delivering messages of hope. We're all in this together. We're going to get through it together, and we're going to be stronger as a community for it in the long run, but we just got to stick with it together. And that's kind of really the heart of the message. And it's a hashtag. The hashtag is hashtag Douglas County DGKS Hope, or the heart emoji.
I could possibly share if you're okay with me sharing the screen.
Yeah.
Just give you a quick look at it.
And maybe while that's coming up, I can state, for the commissioners, this would be to purchase some initial items that could be ordered and received in this calendar year, which is a requirement of the CARES Act funds, but then the work of this well-being branch would continue into 2021 as we continue under unified command.
Right.
Right. Are you seeing these?
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's some of the work that Amy Albright has done so far to create it. Just a very simple but recognizable logo for this effort.
And really the idea behind it is, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, in sitting in the work of this group, I think one of the other pieces of this is to take existing community resources that are excellent and provide one easily identifiable place to go to find all of the resources and to connect with the great things that the community has to offer, and to pull them together, not only sort of like behavioral health services and all those resources for crises, but just some general things to keep the community feeling united around the recovery effort that's going to come after COVID, as people are, continuing to try to link and reintegrate back into the community. And so, if it's separate efforts by all the entities to sort of do the best job they can to connect, and share their resources, we're asking the community to scatter. Right? If we provide a clear, single, unifying link, it'll be an easy place for people to go and to have a common experience while they're, very challenged, right? Because we are bunkered down.
This is Patrick Schmidt.
Perfectly said, Bob. And the idea behind having the logo and the different things is that when there's, a program or a resource, the organization that's providing that program or resource that's about community well-being and mental health, you'd have that display, that logo would be associated with that program and with the building that program is being held in. It's kind of like the throughway.
This is Patrick Schmitz, and one of the other things that we're mindful of is the need to create this in a multitude of languages so that we are better addressing the diversity and equity of our community.
Commissioners, does that kind of give you a sense of what that group's working on and how these funds would be used?
Yes,
it does.
thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Drew. So sorry.
I just wanted to say that helped me a lot. Thank you.
I just have a couple of quick questions for the group. How do you see this existing beyond going forward? I mean, is this a website? I mean, we said we were going to connect them to all the resources. Are we connecting them to a website? Are we connecting them to, and what does that look like?
It's a web
for you?
page. This is Margaret Weisbrod Morris. It is actually currently a web page that is hosted on the Douglas County Public Health website. And that's where it would, live. That's the space that it would live in as a website. And then there is also, we're creating a Facebook page that has the dynamic, ongoing updated resources. And I mean, we really, the idea is that this continues on past pandemic and becomes, just something that is identifiable for Douglas County, Kansas, and that it's an ongoing thing.
This is Patrick Schmitz. Patrick, think about those signs throughout our community that say we care, you're here, we welcome you. This would be some yard signs and other materials that regardless will bring people to a resource now and into the future. And as Margaret said, we'll just continue to update. And those are resources we're always updating anyways. The funds help us just get a way to connect people to it now.
Thanks, appreciate it. Anything else, commissioners, on that? I appreciate the background on it. Okay, so Sarah, again, I feel like maybe I'm not understanding. I see what we've dispersed. I don't see what is coming. What do we still have dollars to disperse tonight?
Yes, but in order to get you that number, staff's recommendation is to reallocate some of the Douglas County funds for that effort. If that is not what the commission wants to do, you have a different dollar amount. So it would be helpful to know where we're headed on that before we talk about the next phase.
So just help me with process here. Why would we single this one out? I mean, we didn't do that last time. Why would we single this one out and say, well, yeah.
I think it was because, staff was recommending this as a transfer. So because it is related to an initiative of Unified Command. Okay. So if you want to take it and, take that $25,000 and add it to the total that you have on the last page of the memo, which is $264,099.81. You can add 25,000, because if you don't allocate it for this, we're going to put it in this pot to be reallocated. So we can add it to that total and the commissioners can decide from there. I also have a little bit of background to talk about on hotels, and we can talk about process after this point if you want, but so it's up to the commission as to how you'd like to proceed. So,
well, I'll put my 2 cents in. I think the need to kind of streamline and make as accessible as possible all of the ways that people can get help. I think that's a super legitimate need. And if the Unified Command and the folks who are with us tonight say they need this, then I believe that they need this, and that it's something that would be appropriate for us to do. If the process is problematic, then we can add it to our discussion with the $264,000. But I guess I would say that I would support this reallocation within the county funds, county dollars that are already allocated to the county.
And if that was any kind of a motion, then I second that.
It was a very sloppy motion.
Yeah,
But Patrick, I don't want to shut you down if you're concerned about the process.
No, I think it looks great. I just want to make sure that we think through, you know, I see we have a couple of attendees who may want to weigh in on, you know, should we, so I just wanted to make sure we're clear about process and why we were doing it differently. And Sarah answered my question on that. You know, this is staff's recommendation, and then we can decide whether we want to take it separately or do it now. We have a motion out there and a second, I think that was a motion and second. You know, my comment would be, I think there's real potential for this beyond COVID. I mean, we've talked about how we coordinate human services. You know, that's a real priority for this commission, is how we coordinate, and just having one spot, whether it's a school counselor, whether it's a case manager, whether it's someone caring for grandma, you know, whatever that is, boy, it would sure be nice to have that in one spot. And so I see some real pluses here. You know, while I understand the purpose is responding to the recovery from COVID, I think there's some real potential here beyond that. And having it be housed with Douglas County Public Health, who does our health equity work, seems like a great tie-in, and someone who's not trying to promote their individual human service first. So yeah, I love this. I just wanted to make sure that we were following a fair process. So yeah. So we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote on it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And so that passes 3-0. So now, Sarah.
And commissioners, I just apologize. Brooke pointed out to me, the updated agenda item did not make the packet. I apologize. It's been a busy day. So we did not get that added. So I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see that. And I do apologize for that. And Brooke, while you're at it, can you go ahead and send me the request list? Because I don't have that in the updated list as well. So
I feel so much better now. I was not understanding what was happening earlier.
I don't know what you guys are looking at.
I am so sorry.
No, that's quite all right. You all are moving at the speed of light here. I get it. So
yeah, I appreciate it.
Hey, Sarah, also you were going to talk to us about information on the hotel situation.
You can all see now the report, and I'll kind of run through that a little. Just we'll make sure the commissioners get this, and we'll make sure it gets updated to this agenda item. So I know that the public will want to see this item. So let me go back a little bit, and then I'll talk about hotels. So of the 24.9 million allocated, 17 million has already has left the building, as we say here, in terms of moving into the community. In terms of expense to date and completion, you see each of the program areas and how we're moving towards that. And I'm scrolling really fast. Whoops, I go almost too fast. Brooke, this number of 14 million represents to help me with the percentage of what this represents.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Brooks, our analyst. The 14 million are the total reported expenditures through yesterday. So typically what I've done is I just report to the state, and then I update Sarah with what I've reported to the state. But now that we're in the 11th hour, I'm going ahead and doing that double reporting and reporting expenditures that are coming to me every day. So as of right now, $14 million has been spent. 11.9 million was submitted to the state today in expenditures through November 30th. So just between November 30th and yesterday, We've had $2.1 million in new expenditures reported. And even with that being said, I've had another almost 2 million reported to me today. So we're really getting into a lot of big expenses. So that's what that value represents there.
Thanks, Brooke. I'm going to move through the comparison data and you can review that. Here is the recap of the decisions you made last week. Sorry about this in terms of, and we've got sometimes this gets a little crazy. I'm looking at the Word version as opposed to the PDF version. So excuse the double headers there for the recruitment of funds that happened last week. And this is the allocation of those funds. Then since then, as we reported last week, we continue to investigate if there were additional funds that would be available to reallocate. Artists Helping the Homeless was able to identify another 5,000 now that we're using the KDEM funds. Bert Nash has anticipated that there's 40,000 they won't need of their allocation. DECA 32,820 and Douglas County's 177,732.33. If the commissioners will remember correctly, as a part of the Douglas County plan, there was an allocation of funds for community-based hotels that we were using to help support our friends in congregate living that had individuals that might need to isolate and quarantine and to manage populations. When the state KDEM shelter came on board, many of those agencies began to use the state shelter as opposed to the county's allocation. There's enough demand for this service right now in the community, and I think there is some transition as this moves through. So I have not, what you see of that 177,000 of Douglas counties, that is still retaining our hotel funds. I want to make sure that we have some funds available in case that shelter it gets to capacity or has other issues, and we still need some local funds through the end of the year to continue that work. And so it is possible that in addition to this 177, that Douglas County will have additional funds that could be reallocated as we move through the next few weeks. And so to me, the next logical question, commissioners, is so what's going to happen with that, Sarah, if there are funds that are not spent and we are not able to identify? So I'd like to talk a little bit about process after tonight, if that's okay with the commission at this point. Does that make sense? My hope is after tonight, from what I understand, and Brooke, please just jump in here if I get any of this wrong. On December 30th, if there are any funds that we have not, in essence, already spent or are already committed to a project that will be completed in December, we have to return those funds on 12/30. So to date back from that, the latest date we can really make any modifications, even just at a staff level, is the 17th of December. So it's now the 9th. My hope was that after today, the commission would make, I think this is the largest chunk of funds that we'll be able to redistribute. So my hope was to get commission priorities on how to reallocate these funds, this 264,000. After today, if the commission is comfortable, I would ask that you authorize me to reallocate any additional funds that are able to come up to priorities that the commission has already identified. And that list is a little different than the list you saw before, and I can pull that list up because I think Brooke sent it to me in terms of from here on out, how funds can be reallocated. So I would say it's very important at this late date that whatever organization receives funds, that they are able to immediately deploy those dollars into the community. So it would be groups that already have established processes that they can just say, here's this chunk of money. We already have a formula. We will within a day distribute those funds or so, because it just in order for any of this to get redeployed, we have to move very quickly. And so Brooks sent that to me, so I'm going to go ahead and open it up so the commissioners can see that updated list based off of well, this is the award from last week. I don't, and I will share my screen. I think there are some folks probably on this list that may not necessarily fit that criteria of being able to quite deploy it as fast as that already have. And Brooke, what's kind of, help me with the language here of when I say that these are folks that can rapidly deploy it into the community. You have a technical term that you use that always makes a lot of sense to me, but I'm not, it's escaping me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
But they already have the grant processes in place to just.
Yes, they have systems and, you know, like Sarah said, the process is in place to quickly distribute the funding. These are folks who have received multiple applications, but have only been able to fund a certain number of them. So they would be able to quickly identify applicants who are eligible and write them a check and send it out. Yeah, I think that would be.
So what I'd like to get some feedback is how the commission would like to allocate this current amount of 264. And then from that point, I'll probably use that direction moving forward to allocate any funds after this date. On this list, there are some that have indicated, you know, we've had contact with Peaslee Technical Center. They have received all the fund. The 50,000 from last week is all that they can all that they can utilize by the end of the year. We do not have a current ask for just food or tenants to homeowners beyond what we funded last week. So ideally, I was going to have them off this list for you, so they wouldn't complicate your conversation tonight. But I can just sort of highlight those I can hide them now as we kind of move forward. Do the commissioners have any questions at this point?
I don't think I have any questions. Commissioners?
I guess I want to make sure I understand the previous conversation. That $177,000 that's included in this 264, those are dollars that are able to be reallocated.
Correct.
And you're saying that the county has other dollars that can be used for rapid rehousing if the state program falls short?
Correct. For both hotels and the $25,000 for the community well-being group. So this is this 177 that is included in that amount is already holding those aside.
Okay. Well, I mean, from what I recall, the organizations that have the ability to get money out across the county or to a specific industry based on data that they already have and can do it quickly because they've been doing it this whole time. It just, correct me if I'm wrong, but that would be the Lawrence Restaurant Association, Explore Lawrence, because they use the hotel data. And I think Lawrence Live, all of those being in the hospitality kind of event industry first shut down and last to open up. So those are the ones that stand out to me. Hey, Sarah, are you guys ready to take the screen down and see?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to add to Commissioner Thelman's. We heard a report from on sales tax from the city, and it almost lined up. I think what impacted me more was the impact to lodging was higher than I expected. Well, I won't say it's higher than I expected. It was data that sort of compelled me, and I asked Sarah to sort of check in and sort of after seeing that report, it's hospitality that's been hit so hard through all of this, and so I think it affirmed for me what you just said, Commissioner Thelman, is that those are the industries that have been hit the hardest. I would like to explore just a little bit. I remember Commissioner Druso asking about Van Gogh last time, and that we see private schools have asked again and again. And just, I don't know if you have any background on that, Sarah. We only saw one public school ask for more and one private university. I just want to make sure we thought that through.
Commissioners, I'm presenting what was given to us. My recommendation would be if we fund one school, we're going to need, I'm nervous about that because while I do think we certainly could, schools, the way we set it up with the per pupil funding formula, they could easily deploy these dollars into the community. It would be they meet that criteria of easy to distribute. Most of them chose not to ask for additional funds, and I'm it's such a difficult decision. Does that mean that they don't need the funds? I don't think that's probably true. I think it's just the nature of asking for additional funds at this point. So I wouldn't necessarily extrapolate that if they're not on that spreadsheet, they don't need the money. I think our whole community is hurting. It's just those that may have said, I think we've gotten what we can use for now, and thank you for that allocation. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, and what I can just tell you, working for a school district, is that they have other CARES Act money that went directly to schools, and private schools were included in that. That doesn't mean that they're not hurting, and other businesses have gotten, different CARES Act funding, Spark funding, and things like that. So I'm not saying I'm just saying they actually have a longer window to spend that money than we do with this money. I mean, that actually goes out, I think, until the end of 2021 are those dollars. So I just wanted to make sure it seemed like a pattern was there, and I wanted to make sure that we talked about that pattern, and I'm okay prioritizing our business community over those schools, not to say that they're not hurting, but knowing that they have a little more flexibility in their CARES Act funding.
I think also not so much with the private university and the private schools, but in the schools, certainly the public school system has some taxing authority. So none of them are going to shut their doors and go out of business. But we have a whole sector that's hanging on by a thread. And if they go down, then we lose a tremendous engine for our economy. So I think I'm certainly wanting to focus on the hospitality industry and all of the people employed by that industry. Their futures depend on those businesses staying open as much as we can hope for that.
Really, and I'm not looking to pick a fight, but they do not have as much tax. The taxing authority comes from the state. The school districts themselves cannot make those. Yeah.
But they do have a revenue source that's others don't have.
And I think, you know, the way the commissioners approached this work last week was to fund a number of community-based requests and meet that need. And I think we've already been able to move those dollars into the community. And then the remaining amount was allocated between 2 hospitality-related businesses. Now with this additional fund, if the focus is on hospitality related businesses, I guess I just encourage commissioners to try to keep it simple at this point in terms of how to move these funds forward. If it's a question of, you know, a third, if you want to come up with some sort of ratio percentage that staff could use, that is something we can also do as well. I appreciate that I put you guys into very difficult positions a number of times this year related to how to distribute these funds. And so I don't want to make your job any more difficult than it needs to be at this point.
I want to take public comment before we make any decisions on this. Commissioners, do you want to discuss any further before we take public comment, or take that now?
I'm ready for public comment.
Sarah, is there anybody there at the courthouse who likes to provide public comment?
No.
And it looks like we do have somebody online, so if we'll go ahead and move them in. Hi, Michael, it looks like you're moved in. If you could just unmute and address the commission.
Thank you so much. I somehow got kicked out, but I'm back. I just want to, basically, thank you for taking a look at the dire straits that the lodging industry is in, as reports that most recently Jeremy Womack from the city reported, 45% down in revenue and 37% down in transient guest tax. So the industry, and again, we appreciated all the money that you've already allocated to us. But any help at this time just is really dire for us. We need it. We just were shared some information from the city that they have not going to allow any sporting events in the sports pavilion through the month of January. That's another 4 weeks of potential sporting events that drive overnight stays to our community is gone. And that was been shut off since June or July. So anything you do to help, we greatly appreciate it. I thought we would follow the Lawrence Restaurant Association's model, basically look at how much lost business hotels had and then allocate the funds appropriately, whatever you guys come up with. And we could turn this really quickly. All these businesses, the big hotels, they can turn those numbers around for us in a day or two. So we're very confident that we could allocate these funds, before the 20th of the month, if we move ahead with this. So we appreciate anything you do to help us. We have worked with the city, and the city has found some funds to do a winter sheltering program, but that is a program where their hotels are competing for that business. We want to find some money that we can give to all the hotels, and we would include all the hotels and all the lodging properties within the county. We'll do the outreach like we did last time, asking them to respond quickly to us, provide us information, and then we'll allocate the funds. So I thank you again for considering this, and I'm open to any questions if you have anything.
No questions from me.
Thank you, Michael. I don't have any questions either.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Any other public comment on this agenda item? Okay. Sarah, I'd be willing to hear your suggestion on the best way to, and all the way to, these are the three we want to, that we think need to get the balance of these dollars, and I'd be fine just giving you the authority to figure out how to divide, because it's a little tricky, because the silly math that I came up with last time, I don't know that helped you at all. So anybody have any suggestions on this.
Well, I mean, if going a third is, and keeping that ratio for whatever funds come up, you know, right up to the deadline, I think that all three of these, LRA, Lawrence Live, and Explore Lawrence, they all need as much as they can get. So if that, I mean, if you all are comfortable with that ratio, that's fine with me.
Yes, and I think that might just be the simplest method. If for some reason we were to hear from one of those agencies that they did not need those funds, we could reallocate, I mean, to someone else. But I think even at a third, Lawrence Live has the smallest amount that it has requested for additional funds. I don't think we're going to hit that amount with a third of what we have here tonight and a third of what we would have over the next week or so. So I think it just makes the most sense to try to divide it that way. But if the commissioners have another thought, I'm certainly open to it.
I think that might be the easiest way. I certainly would love the exercise of coming up with how to, I didn't know our 264 number to start with, but I don't want to do a bunch of spreadsheets here live. That's never fun. So I'm sure we could figure out a more complicated way to do it, but I'll take a break from that behavior tonight. So.
And I do apologize, commissioners, that, you know, that how late it's been to get this information before you all. And that's why I kind of want to, from this point forward, I want us to expedite the funds, and staff will distribute it per this recommendation.
I think we're just, I'm just so grateful to Brooke and Sarah. I mean, it's had to be kind of a hellacious task to get these numbers, you know, so quickly. And yeah, they didn't make our packet at the last minute, but you have the numbers and they're accurate, and we have good background on these organizations. So I feel like we're really lucky to be able to have now a third go around and be able to get just a little more help to these folks who really, really need it. And so kudos to you guys for getting the numbers to us any way you could.
Thank you, commissioners. And, you know, and I would say that for every one question related to this, there's probably 10 others that we are able to field that don't make it to this level, including, I think Brooke's getting practically daily questions from the state, like, how are you doing in terms of your progress? And I have been copied on those many emails of her saying, don't worry, we're going to spend it. And I would say, I mean, $2 million has left the door in very rapid succession. I would say too, and I know, our goal is to try to expend all of these dollars as locally as possible. And that's why we're making it hard on ourselves to constantly kind of, okay, what do we have left? What do we have left? We could have easily cut it off a while back and just said, we're done, and made it easy. To make the commissioners feel a little bit better, there has been a pretty substantial movement over the last week, led by a number of human resources related organizations and chambers of commerce that have indicated that the governor's office has said that any returned funds from round one of CARES Act dollars will be used to bolster the state unemployment fund, which many of our residents are actively using to get unemployment dollars during this pandemic. So I do think it's important to note that if we have funds that we are not able to redistribute, it's certainly going to a very worthy cause that it will benefit Douglas County residents.
Okay, can I complicate things?
Sure.
I'm going to do math since Commissioner Kelly doesn't want to, and I'm really bad at math. I just want to make sure. So Lawrence Live, their original request was 500,000, and we approved 300,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay, sorry, my monitor all this doesn't fit on my monitor, so it's hard for me to. And then we gave him an additional 83,000 last week.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just gonna throw this out there. Could we, my thought is Lawrence Restaurant Association, 100,000, Explore Lawrence, 100,000, and the balance is 64, I think 64,000 to Lawrence Live, because that puts them over 400,000 and pretty close to their original ask. But you know, Explore Lawrence didn't get anything last week. Just a thought. So 100, and I guess 64,000.
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. I think yeah, I'll just say I'd be fine with that. I think we have to think about that hotel industry a little bit more than maybe we did last week.
I'm fine.
And
so in terms of money that comes in, how do you want that to be handled?
I think we'd work out a percentage that's similar to that as ratio for it moving forward. And please know, we're going to be in constant conversation with these folks in terms of how quickly they can distribute, and knowing that the commission's priority here is knowing that their priority is the hospitality related industry, we can move it out in that effect.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and make a motion to reallocate 100 CARES Act money, 100,000 to Explore Lawrence, 100,000 to the Lawrence Restaurants Association, and 64,000 to Lawrence Live, and to authorize administration to reallocate remaining funds based on priorities expressed in the last two meetings by the county commission.
Second.
Wow, double second. That's great. I think I know we're good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Right, Brooke and Sarah, and just huge kudos to both of you. This is such a difficult process, and I don't want my comments to come off as disappointed. That's not my intention at all. Just, yeah, I just want to make sure we give the public a fair process as we work through what's been really challenging for all of us to allocate this money. We don't have near enough, and to make everyone whole. I've said that every time, and I think it's really important to remember. But you all have just done incredible work. I love it that the state is asking us if we're going to spend all our money. I just think that's great. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Brooke.
We'll make sure we get the packet updated too, commissioners. So if anybody who's watching this meeting wants to go back and find all those materials, we'll make sure we get it updated.
Can I just ask a quick question? When you had that, you had something up earlier that wasn't in our packet. I think it was a list of every agency and the percentage where they were, and you were down at the bottom towards grand total. So I could see the W's. On that page you were showing, there were two that caught my eye that I was just kind of curious if we'd heard anything about, or what was Willow. They're both only 31%. So I was just curious if we'd heard anything from them, or.
Yeah, commissioners, Brooks, our analyst, I have heard from the folks at the Willow. They have spent their money. They're not meeting my reporting requirements just yet, but as I'm fully certain that they have spent their funding. We're just having a hard time getting them, having it on the template in the format that I'm asking of them. So.
Okay.
With all the proper documentation, but I'm sure they'll get that to us.
Yes, they will.
Okay. Like I said, because you were stopped on that screen, I just happened to those two numbers jumped out at me. So yeah, I'm sure you will, but let's stay on that. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to be fair with all of the subrecipients, I'm probably being really mean. I'm making them meet very stringent reporting requirements before I send them money. So if they send me a report and I don't like it, I send it back and I have them redo it and send it back to me. So that's kind of how that process works. But
Well, I appreciate that because we have to answer to the state. So
exactly.
Thank you for that.
My only concern in all of this is if the state is paying so much attention to Brooke's work and her work is so good, I'm afraid they might try to pull you out of Douglas County. So I think we need to have you sign some papers.
Brooks'
committing
contract
your-
does not expire at 12:30.
Right, all right.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna guess that Brooke's mean is not as mean as she thinks it is. That's just a guess. So yeah.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke. Okay. Anything else on that, Sarah? I want to make sure we've
No.
got that.
Thank you,
buttoned up.
Commissioner. Appreciate your indulgence.
Okay, the next is appointments, and we have an item here for county appointments to the Behavioral Health Partners, Inc. Board of Directors. And I see Bob is stuck around, and I'm guessing it's for this.
You're muted, Bob.
I have stuck around. It's been a long night. I wanted to show you this visual because even though it's been a long night, this is 37 seconds. And this is 37 seconds that represents 36 months of planning and 12 months of construction and the work of 8 very dedicated agencies and their teams and their staffs and trainer architects in Marlan and a whole host of community members who have at various points attended meetings and said, have you thought about, and how will we, and you really should pay attention to, and just kind of all of the things that it takes to realize a vision. And we've got 2 pieces of that vision finished. And what I want to talk to you about tonight with our partners is the 3rd piece of that vision, which is so that we will have to celebrate at the end of next year, 12 months from this period of time. And it's a shame that the community has not had the opportunity to all be at the ribbon cuttings and to celebrate what we've done. But I just wanted you and everybody to be able to see that. So let's talk for a minute about the vision for structure and governance of this facility, which is the Crisis Recovery Center on the Treatment and Recovery campus of Douglas County. As we have shared most recently in September, Burt Nash and LMH have formed a partnership, a nonprofit organization called Behavioral Health Partners, Inc. And they have done that with the understanding that the county will contract with that entity to operate the crisis center under a funding agreement with the county. The bylaws that organization shaped with our behavioral health partners and consultation with our partners, and that you endorsed in September, has a governing structure of a board of 9 people. Burt Nash is appointing 3 people to the board. LMH is appointing 3 people to the board, and Douglas County has been invited to appoint 3 people to the board as well. So those 3 entities, County, LMH Health, and Burt Nash, have been meeting over the last 8 weeks to talk about that process and to do that in a way that speaks to the aspirations, sort of in the bylaws, that the board of directors is committed to reflecting the interests of the stakeholders, that the board would include subject matter and lived experience experts, including at least 1 member with direct lived experience of mental illness, substance abuse, or addiction. The board will embrace inclusion and represent the diversity of our community. Board will be dedicated to championing human rights, recognizing the specific needs of the individuals behavioral health partners will serve, and defending the worth and rights of all. The board of directors will ensure equity by requiring BHP Inc. to actively work to remove barriers to care and improve outcomes by focusing on underserved and marginalized community members. And the individuals on the board shall recognize that holding a belief isn't enough. These beliefs must translate into visible and deliberate action. That's a big, bold charge and aspiration. And, I report to you that the three entities involved in this process have worked really hard to come up with a slate of 9 outstanding inaugural candidates or inaugural appointees. Jeanette Kirkpatrick is here from LMH Health. Patrick Schmitz is here from Burt Nash to speak on behalf of behavioral health partners to the 3 individuals that they each are appointing. Douglas County is recommending that the county appoint 3 people. Staff are recommending that we appoint 3 people. Those 3 people are Jason Hess. As you know, Jason is the CEO of Heartland Radac, one of our key behavioral health partners. Sarah Plinsky on behalf of the county, and Cindy Ulick, who is, a person who has a tremendous reputation in the community for her fiscal responsibility and expertise, her long service on boards, including the LMH Board of Directors, USD 497, Chamber, Peasley Tech. So those are our recommendations to serve on the board on behalf of the county. LMH Health is recommending Dr. Ashley Bloom, Jeanette Kirkpatrick, and Nancy Thelman to serve and to be their appointees. And Burt Nash is recommending Kevin Harrell, Stephen O'Neill, and Bruce Wallers to serve. Bruce has been the person identified specifically around that lived experience, direct experience expertise. This has been really a long process to come up with 9 people who blend in ways that meet all of the aspirations here in front of you as a really complicated task. And we considered a broad base of people. There were probably 25 or 30 people that we were talking about between the three entities, and this was not an easy list to come up with, as these things always are. But the recommendation is that the county appoint Jason Hess, Sarah Plinsky, and Cindy Ulick as our appointees. And like I said, Patrick and Jeanette are here. This is really not, about the whole slate of candidates, because we are only appointing 3 candidates, as we've been invited to do by behavioral health partners. So we will be open to any questions, and Jeanette and Patrick are available for discussion on this.
Any questions or discussion?
I don't have any. But
I think it's a great slate of candidates and appreciate all the work that went into it.
So what a great group of people. Yeah.
You're getting some professional board members there, some people who really have some experience, and it's a really important group to get right. And I see 3 of those people on the screen right now who will be on this board, I assume, and I have the utmost confidence in this group. So I'll be happy to make the motion to, if that's okay, commissioners, I'll make the motion to appoint Jason Hess, Cindy Ulick, and Sarah Plinsky. I want to get the name right. Hang on. To the Behavioral Health Partners, Inc. Board of Directors.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Thank you for your work on that.
This is Patrick Schmitz. Thank all of you for your work on it and your support.
And thanks for hanging around. I think you guys have been here for a while.
Yeah. That was a very long evening for you, just for that very short moment. And Bob, you as well. What a lovely package you just presented to help us all hear again what this is about. And so thank that you guys for sticking with us through this long meeting and for all the work to come. It's going to be great.
This is Jeanette Kirkpatrick from LMH Health, and Commissioner Thurman, we I have appreciated your support over the last year and look forward to the work to come.
All right. Do we have any other appointments this evening?
Yes, Commissioners, we sent you some reappointments related to the Board of Construction Appeals.
No, those, I don't, are you talking about the ones Robin sent today?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
We did those back in October.
Okay.
Tina got back to me today because I followed up because I thought we had already done them, and she said we did them back in October.
Okay.
Well, we will.
Did we have somebody for the Heritage Council?
Yes, we have someone for that as well.
Yeah. So I'm happy to make that motion. He's incredibly well qualified, and the HCC is lucky to have him. So I would move that we appoint Nicholas Pumphrey to be for the Heritage Conservation Council.
I'll go ahead and second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Any other appointments, commissioners? Okay, we will move on to general public comment. Sarah, is there anyone there at the courthouse who'd like to provide general public comment?
I don't have anyone here.
No one online, it looks like. So we'll move to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous. Sarah?
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll try to keep it brief. In your packet, there is an updated memo for the week. We do have a work session next week with a presentation from Lawrence Douglas County Public Health related to Black maternal child health. That will be our last meeting of the year. So we're putting a few items together for it, but we do have a work session at 4. I wanted to point out that there is both a Human Service Coalition meeting coming up, and the CJCC is doing implicit bias training over the weekend as well. So that's moving forward. I had promised a while back to give you all a few quick updates on COVID and the work of Unified Command as we're going through. So I'm going to try to do this really briefly. A press release went out this week related to additional asymptomatic testing happening this weekend in Lecompton, I believe in Baldwin, and in Lawrence as well. So throughout the community, folks are encouraged to make an appointment. Appointments are needed to have this. This is asymptomatic testing. So we encourage folks to participate in that. We referenced earlier this week that the state has partnered with us to set up a hotel site for isolation and quarantine. Staff is working closely with public health staff to make sure that program has some success. It's seeing a lot of use. We want to continue to try to make sure we have enough resources available for as long as we do. There was a sign up going out from public health earlier this week related to healthcare employers and vaccinating their indication to be vaccinated. So that's moving out. And then I wanted to mention, tomorrow is another COVID town hall being hosted by LMH Health. So that will start at 5:30. We've been trying to get some additional information out so our community knows that we're having these, but as you know from last time, we had a lot of great participation with minimal advertising. But I do want to try to publicize and that there is going to be another COVID town hall tomorrow night, so that the commission's aware of that, and we'll make sure that you have the link to that, and that information is on our Coronavirus Hub website. So Robert and I will be there representing the county for that presentation. And I just stand for any questions the commissioners might have.
Thank you for your time on that, Sarah. I know that you've got a lot on your plate right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other miscellaneous items, commissioners?
No.
Okay. So we will see everybody next week. With that, We are adjourned.
Thank you.